taking notes from nobody.
Your superstars have off games.
Follow us on social media at Celtics Talk Weekly.
Welcome into Celtics Postgame Live, everybody. I'm your host, Justin Lowe. Alongside with me, my co-host, Seamus Darligo, a.k.a. Celtics Every Day. And the Boston Celtics defeat the Chicago Bulls 117-94. They improved to 50-30. Yes, the Boston Celtics have 50 wins on the regular season. They do take the season series against the Chicago Bulls 2-1. Seamus, from the tip, the Boston Celtics absolutely dominated. I know Bulls coming off of a second night of a back-to-back, playing the Bucks last night. Celtics had a couple days off, but I mean, they absolutely, from the tip, took this one.
Yeah, and you look at all the teams the Celtics could potentially play in the first round, the Bulls are on that list. And right now, I feel like that's the most comfortable team or the most comfortable opponent the Celtics could possibly face in the first round. Toronto, we talked about all the vaccine, drama there with the team, and who knows how that's going to play out. We talked about avoiding Brooklyn if we're number one or number two. But right now, we're looking at Chicago. They're, of course, riddled with injuries. No Caruso, no Lonzo Ball potentially for the rest of the season, but they're still a formidable basketball team. And tonight, the Celtics just absolutely whooped them like they whooped the Wizards on Sunday. Yeah. And right now, the Celtics, we thought without Robert Williams, hey, the Celtics, they should still be able to win games. They might not dominate teams, but they should still be able to win games. And those first two games, we were sitting there going, Toronto, of course, we were shorthanded. And then the Miami game, people were wondering, well, have the Celtics resorted back to their old ways now that they're not fully healthy? Well, look at these last two games. Of course, we blew out the Wizards. We took care of the Pacers. And then tonight, against the Chicago Bulls, who have playoff aspirations, we go into their home court, their home arena, and absolutely whoop them. The Celtics, they're back on track. This is the adjustment period I was talking about a week ago where it was going to take some time for the Celtics to find their feet without Robert Williams. And now, all of a sudden, with 2 games left in the season against Milwaukee, against Memphis, before we find out our playoff opponent, the Celtics look to be rolling it yet again.
And as we welcome in my other co-host, Ian Angelo, Ian, welcome. The Boston Celtics, we were just talking about, no Robert Williams, kind of, the first 2 games against, Toronto and Miami. We figured, okay, we are a little shorthanded, but we resorted back to a few of the things we try to stay away from since the beginning of the season. And then these last 3 games, able to take care of business at home against the Pacers, able to take care of business at home against the Washington Wizards by 40-plus points. And then tonight here, a 23-point victory against a potential, as Seamus mentioned, a very highly potential first-round opponent in the Chicago Bulls. What are your thoughts on this win, Ian?
You know why the Celtics have been so good and why they've won the last 2 games?
Go ahead.
Because of the greatest player in Celtics history, Daniel Theis.
Yeah.
Daniel Theis,
yes.
he played crazy tonight. He was super good. Him and Al Horford couldn't miss. Al Horford didn't miss. So
7-7, yeah.
That was a crazy night. Horford and Theis have stepped up with Robert Williams being out, which has been super important. Al Horford is looking really, really good right now. He's playing his best basketball right now. Even Tatum, he had an off night tonight, shooting wise. He still had 8 assists and 10 rebounds.
Double, yeah.
Jason Tatum, his playmaking is just on another level right now when it comes to being able to pass out of the double team and making the right pass. Jason Tatum has just elevated that to another level. And honestly, I think everyone is underrating Jaylen Brown right now. Jaylen Brown has been on an absolute tear basically since the start of the month, honestly. Probably since around the end of March to the beginning. Well, now it's the beginning of April, but ever since mid-March, Jaylen Brown has just been insane.
I'm really glad you mentioned that because Rob and I were talking a little bit this morning about, look, we saw this humongous leap from Jason Tatum in the first half, between the first half of the year and the second half of the year, playing his art, not undoubtedly best brand of basketball in his 5 or 6 year career so far. I mean, he's taken it to a whole other level. If we remember that 54 performance against Brooklyn, I honestly thought
that was his magnum opus this season. I think
I honestly thought that game was better than his 60-point game. Just the way he was so dominant, absolutely dominant. Don't get me wrong, that value in that 60-point game is unbelievable. But Jaylen Brown, the last 10, 12 games or so, has really come out of, I don't know if he was in a shell, a little bit of a slump. I don't know what he was in, but he has also progressed to a whole other level that we might have not thought Jaylen Brown could go to, at least so quickly. And that's going to be big time, because we didn't get to see Jaylen Brown at this time of year. I texted in the group chat. I said, this is going to be the first time in 2 years we get to see Jaylen Brown in the postseason. We didn't get to see him last year with that right wrist injury, and we haven't seen him since the bubble in that Eastern Conference Finals run. So, time will only tell, but the way Jaylen Brown is playing, I'm glad you mentioned that, Ian. And then especially on both ends, especially with Tatum as well, the way those guys can score. So two really young superstars. And not only can they score at high levels, but they can also defend at high levels. And I think that's huge. But let's really quickly get to tonight's player spotlight. We'll get right into it. It is Al Horford tonight, who, yes, 17 points, 10 rebounds, 7 of 7 from the field, 3 of 3 from long range. He moves into that top 5 on our player spotlight leaderboard, tying up Robert Williams at 5. Wow, 5's all across the board. That's the lucky number. I'm guessing, unless Horford rests, I mean, he could have a chance to get into that top 4, but if Horford rests, which I think is likely, and I think it's smart, he might not be able to get it. But, guys, what did we see for? We're talking about Brown. We're talking about Tatum's triple-double. We're talking about Tice. How about Al Horford, huh? I mean, his age don't matter. We keep talking about it. Everybody brings up his age. His age doesn't matter because, honest to God, at moments, he looks better than he did in his first stint in Boston.
Yeah, Al Horford right now, I've said it all season long, with the strategic rest with him and his minute management and him, obviously himself, just being in prime shape for a 35-year-old. That is what is translating to this play right now, and going into the playoffs, it's going to be so important that, number one, Al Horford is healthy, and number two, he's playing at a high level. And just think about how many times Al Horford has been through this process before. Right. He's a 35-year-old veteran in the NBA. He's been around since, 2007, 2008, that range right there. And Al Horford, up to this point, he knows what he needs to do to get his body ready for the playoffs. He knows what he needs to do to play at a high level and ramp himself up. And that's exactly what we're seeing out of him and the rest of the squad right now. This is a little bit of a different vibe with this year's team, where we have Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Marcus Smart. All of those guys in the past were leaning on the younger side, of course, when we made our playoff runs. Even Marcus Smart, he was a younger player at the time. It all feels like he's exactly what to do and how to approach this postseason run that we're inevitably going to go on at this point. And it's made all the difference in the second half of the season, and I believe it will pay dividends moving forward into the playoffs as well, with all of these guys, Al Horford included, being prime shape. They know how to ramp up their body, and they know exactly what it's going to take from them to go out and win come playoff time.
Definitely. I mean, I've been singing Al Horford's praises pretty much all year, basically, outside of that random 1 week of the year, right before the trade deadline, where he was, I don't know what happened. Ever since then. Yeah, I mean, we can go back to that trade deadline show that me and Seamus did when we were just talking about the random players that were going to get traded, and we thought Al Horford was gone after that 1 week of playing. But, I mean, Al Horford's been an insane addition to this team. If we didn't get Al Horford back, the Celtics, I don't even know where the Celtics would be if we didn't have Al Horford, really. I mean, he's been this good pretty much all year. It's just right now he's playing his best basketball basically when the Celtics need it most. And I don't know, maybe this is what we were kind of ramping him up for and we were resting him for, so that if a situation happens where, Robert Williams gets hurt, Al Horford can step up the way he's stepping up right now. And I mean, Also, Jason Tatum scored 2,000 points tonight, so that's
Right.
pretty cool. He's
only the seventh
seventh-
Celtic player. Yeah.
seventh
Celtic in
Celtic.
history. Crazy.
That's crazy.
And it's you mentioned, hey, maybe that's why Al Horford, his minutes might be getting managed, with Rob being out of the lineup. Well, that just makes that Daniel Tice trade so much sweeter at the deadline, doesn't it? When you can have a guy like Daniel Tice come in and, now he's starting. And I've said this before, like, he's a starting center on some NBA teams. Like, he's not a third string center on at least every single NBA team. But when you can have him behind Horford, behind Robert Williams, that makes everything so much sweeter. And it works so well as well. People were like, oh, well, why didn't, Tristan Thompson and Robert Williams, those are two decent centers. Yeah, but you can't stretch the floor like you could with a Al Horford or a Daniel Tice, or even throwing a Grant Williams if you want to play a little small ball too. And I think that has something to do with it as well, because everybody's trying to compare, why is the double big working this year, but it wasn't last year? Well, that's because Tristan Thompson nor Robert Williams can shoot anywhere past 15 feet. Al Horford, Daniel Tice, Grant Williams can all stretch the floor, shoot the three ball, and defend the perimeter. So that's where the big difference comes. And I think the Celtics and Bulls just have a thing where they just kind of exchange players throughout years. That the Bulls have Javonte Green, they have Tristan Thompson, we have Luke Cornett, we have Daniel Tice, a couple of guys Chicago had last year. So that was a little weird.
Oh my god, they were talking about the double big lineup on the broadcast, and I was just getting PTSD from last year.
Yeah.
Literally, this game just gave me a flashback to last season. Just seeing how far this team has come from last year.
Right.
It's crazy to think. It's crazy to think we legitimately thought we were going to blow up this team.
I mean,
it's
hindsight, obviously, it's an insane thought. But at the time, we were obviously we weren't thinking about it, but there was people that were legitimately thinking about blowing up this team. That's kind of crazy.
We went from looking into the play-in tournament to now we're looking down and say, all right, who we playing from that play-in tournament? That's how crazy things have changed.
It's crazy. And just think of even in the past couple of months. I mean, Ian came in here and praised Daniel Tice. I mean, that was unthinkable back in January. It was unthinkable. And now it happens. And right now, Celtics just last season, I love when we play the Bulls now, because last season both teams weren't up to par. The Bulls, they didn't have DeMar DeRozan yet. They didn't have Alex Caruso yet. They didn't have Lonzo. They didn't have their free acquisitions yet last year, and they finished, I believe, 11th or 12th in the East last year and missed the play-in. And yet the last couple of games of the season last year, they dominated us on the same floor.
Yeah.
On the same floor, I believe. There was less than 10 games left, and we lost to a team led by Al Farouk Aminu last year, and of course their
Hey, that's Williams. Your guy. Put some respect on his name, man. That's your boy.
Man.
And so you just looked at last year's matchup. The Bulls were up to par. They're still dominating us with their 11 seed, 12 seed team last year, whereas we're in the play-in game and we're 500 now. And they raised over the offseason, this team, watch out. They're a finals team. Watch out for the Bulls. They have DeRozan. They have Lonzo Ball. They have Zach LaVine. They have Nikola Vucevic. They have all these guys who can go out and put points up on the board. But injuries happen. Yeah. Look at where we're at. Where we're now. The Celtics are healthy. Bulls are not. And who's the team dominating? It's the Celtics. And it's crazy the path. It's crazy to think about the path that both teams have been on to this point to get to this specific game tonight. The Celtics, they come out, they grab a lead in the first quarter, and they're done. They're pretty much done. Scal's sitting there. We have a 7-point lead. Scal's sitting there going, this game's over. This is pure domination. I'm going, I agree. Somehow only a 7-point game. I feel like we'll blow this team out. And that's exactly what we did. And it's crazy now to see that is the result of this game, the Bulls, because the Bulls, November 1st, 2021, that was the first occasion, or one of the first occasions, I should say, in the history of Smart, Tatum, and Brown, was an occasion where he looked at that group of guys, Smart, Tatum, and Brown, who have been together forever. And is there a rift there? Is there a legitimate rift there? We've heard the stories about them. You know, they're really passionate in the locker room. Of course, back in the bubble, they had their little argument during the Eastern Conference Finals. But is this a rift? Regular season, you know, this is the 6th game of the season. They blow a 19-point lead to the Bulls. Marcus Smart, guys out in the post-game presser. And yet they come back, and we're dominating the Bulls right now. Be appreciative of the spot we're in right now. It's crazy to think about last year compared to this year. It's night and day all the way around.
Honest and truthfully, I mean, honestly, it's kind of crazy to think that the Celtics have 50 wins now. Like, we are a 50.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
team.
Last time we were
now,
50.
granted, in the beginning of the year, you can go back to the podcasts in the beginning of the year. I said the Celtics have a chance to be a top 3 team in the East, and they have a chance to be a 50-win team. I got clowned for it. I'm not going to lie. I made a Celtics prediction video in the beginning of the year. I had the Celtics in the 3 seed. I had a bunch of Knicks fans, Lakers fans. You know, I had a bunch of those fans saying that, oh, you know, I was just biased and the Celtics aren't that good. No, I mean, they're that good. Granted, you know, it happened. Obviously, it happened later than the beginning of the year. But still, nonetheless, I mean, the Celtics have completely turned around their season, and it's just good to see. It feels like playing the Bulls in this game was just kind of a reminder of, like, damn, like, we were really, like, we were in the Bulls situation back in when we were, you know, we played them the first time.
3-4 months ago, right?
We blew that 19-point lead that, you know, it kind of feels like that 19-point lead is, you know, if they ever make like a documentary on this team, like say the Celtics end up winning the finals and they make like the finals documentary, that game is going to be in that documentary as like somewhat of a turning point. Eventually.
For sure.
So, I mean, anytime we play the Bulls now, it just kind of feels like just special at this point. Like, you know, because from when we played them before and now blowing them out today, which was just, it kind of felt good, not going to lie.
Ian's talking about the predictions at the beginning now because we should rightfully be taking a victory lap on this team because, yes, faith during the middle portion of the season, we did make predictions before the season.
We don't talk
and those still hold up strong. But I have receipts right here. It's on October 19th, 2021. So a day, I guess it was 2 days before the season start, but it was 3 days before the Celtics season start. Brooklyn Nets, number seed. Didn't work out. Not going to lie. Didn't work out. I'm glad it didn't work out. So before the Celtics go out and purposely lose these next 2 games to duck the Nets and go into the 3 seed so we face the Bulls in the first round. Let's just take this moment and realize that the Celtics are the 2 seed right now. And where are they at on this? Oh, number 2.
You had them at 12?
That's right.
I'm kidding.
I clowned so hard for this. Months.
Same.
No,
Same.
The most embarrassing one, I will admit, the most embarrassing prediction I had going into the season, Cavaliers, 14th.
Don't be mad. I had the Lakers as the first seed.
Expect Garland's ascension and Mobley and Allen to work out. I don't know. But anyway, the Celtics, they're the number 2 right now. I had him 4. I wish I would have put him lower, honestly, because I was having him at 4 just to be generous, in the sense of like I can't be that biased, right? And of course they're 11, but the Celtics are the number 2 seed right now. I believe they would finish as the number 2 seed if they were to, you know, just win out these next 2 games, which I believe they're doing, because the Grizzlies are without Ja Morant right now. We've seen with Ja Morant, we have the ability. And against the Milwaukee Bucks, who we've already beat season, although I believe second night of a back-to-back, Tatum, Brown, Horford, all were probable coming into today. I believe they're not going to play tomorrow on the second night of the back. I think that's just inevitable. These next two games, I purposely lose. Who knows? So right now, the Celtics are the two seed. I have them as a 2 seed. I'm taking this. I'm taking this W. I'm taking the W right now.
Definitely. Your audio is like 20 seconds
like
behind your
so
actual
behind.
talking.
But you made a good point, Seamus, and you said that how they were listed as probable coming into tonight. That happened last week where they were listed probable going into who was it we played on the first night of a back-to-back? It was the game before the Toronto game, but they were listed as probable then. Then second night of a back-to-back, Boston's in Toronto. All three of those guys sit. That I wouldn't mind, Ian, if I don't see. Here's how I am. I want to win every freaking game we can because we went through so much losing over the past year and a half. I just want to win. I don't care who, you know what I mean? But then I know if we win, we get like the toughest play-in spot ever in the Brooklyn Nets. Like arguably the most talented 7th, 8th seed ever in the history of ever. So, I mean, I don't want to. I think I'd be more comfortable playing the Nets if I had a Robert Williams, right?
Same.
Like if we had Robert Williams, I might say, okay, it's the Nets. Like, try it. But I don't know. I feel like that Grizzlies game. Grizzlies are better without Ja Morant. They're like 18-2 without him.
18-2 without him. They're insane without him. So I don't know. That's just good team building on the Grizzlies' part. But I don't know, man. Honest and truthfully, I don't think I want Tatum and Brown and Horford to play tomorrow.
I don't know if they will.
I don't think they should, honestly and truthfully. I mean, like you said, I want to win as many games as we can. I would love to beat Milwaukee, honestly. But at the same time, I really don't want to face Brooklyn in the first round without Robert Williams.
Right.
Just because, I just don't want to lose in the first round. I want them to at least go to the second round, at least. So, it'll be interesting to see.
So right now, we have a game lead. Is it a half game? Would it be a half game lead or would it be
right now? It's
game?
a half game. It's a half game.
Okay, so it's a half game lead. So say we lose to Milwaukee tomorrow, we're tied. So we still have the tiebreaker, right? We would still have the tiebreaker, or would we not?
No, it would be 2-2 because we beat Milwaukee twice, and then Brooklyn, and then
we have a better conference record than them.
Oh, all right. Then maybe.
Okay.
I don't know how it works.
Tonight
honestly,
we would have a better conference. Okay. No, so because I'm just trying to think because then they at least they have Detroit, but Detroit seems to like beat every good team nowadays. It feels like Detroit's just winning now ever since the post All-Star break.
They might as well, honestly. I mean, their season was lost after like the first 20 games of the year. So
right. If I'm and Rob and I talked about this, if I'm Boston, I'm trying to avoid Brooklyn, and I'm also trying to avoid obviously Philly, but I'm really trying to avoid Toronto as well because I don't want to find out who's vaccinated and who's not vaccinated the hard way. Like we're already down Robert Williams. If we have to go down Tatum or Brown, like that game back in January or November, whenever it was, that game doesn't matter because the rules have changed. The rules changed like mid-January, so that game back in November doesn't matter. I don't really care. Like, look, I don't really have an opinion on if they're vaccinated or not. It is what it is, but I don't want to find out. How about that? I don't want to find out.
Exactly. I don't want to figure it out either because it would make Celtics fans look like insane hypocrites because we shit on Kyrie Irving all year just to find out that two of our superstars might not be vaccinated.
Right.
So.
Right. And Toronto does play us really well. They match up against us pretty well as well. So I kind of wouldn't want to play them. I'm in love. If we could drop down to 3 and play Chicago home court, I would love that.
Chicago so badly.
I want to
play Chicago. I really, really want to play Chicago, and I've been saying this for a while, ever since we kind of started talking about playoffs. I've been saying that playing Chicago really wouldn't be that bad. Even when Chicago was playing somewhat well at the beginning of the month or so, I still really would have rather played Chicago than played Cleveland at the time. So, I mean, if we can play Chicago in the first round, I feel like that would be the most ideal for the Celtics.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, if we play the 2 seed, is there any way Brooklyn loses in the first play-in game? Whether they play, let's say they play Cleveland and Cleveland's healthy. Is there any way Brooklyn really loses that game? Like, if they lose, imagine we end up playing Cleveland in the first round if we're the 2nd seed.
The good news is, I feel like the Cavs always give Brooklyn a really, really good matchup.
Yeah, they do.
Right? Like, so...
Because Mobley and Allen are coming back. So...
Right. So, I don't know. And then I look at Atlanta as well as a possibility.
I low-key don't want to face Atlanta at all.
I don't
just
either.
Because Atlanta always finds a way. They always find a way to kick the Celtics' ass sometimes. They always find a way to do it.
And we can't win on the road against those guys. Like, we didn't, like, when we won in 2008, we didn't win a single road game in the playoffs against Atlanta. When we played them back in 2016, we didn't win, or 2015, whenever it was, we didn't win a single road game in that series. Both wins were at home. And then this season, I think we're 0-2, and we got smacked both times in Atlanta. Same thing at last season. I'd rather not see Atlanta at all in the playoffs. I'd like to see, like I said, I'd like to see Chicago, Cleveland, and honestly probably Charlotte, because I know Charlotte has one of the better offenses in the league, but they really have zero defense, and I wouldn't mind playing Charlotte, and I think it'd be an entertaining first round matchup. Seamus, are you good?
Yeah, I think. Wait, maybe. I have no idea. Probably.
Just go ahead. Just go ahead.
I have no idea. But Charlotte, Cleveland, Chicago, and then Atlanta tentatively at the end there. Those are the teams the Celtics want to face. Chicago, we saw tonight, they have 2 superstars at the top, or stars at the top, in DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. And over a 7-game series, they're eventually going to get hot a couple of games and put on a performance in which we're going to lose. Well, I don't expect a sweep against the Chicago Bulls. But if you just get all the opponents that are out there, the Bulls are the most vulnerable right now in terms of their offense is not complete. Lonzo Ball out there, and their defense is not complete without Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso out there. And we don't know if Lonzo Ball is going to come back or not. Caruso might have a better chance. As for these other teams, Atlanta, Charlotte, Cleveland. Right now, Cleveland, they're hampered with injury. They have been for most of the second half of the season, and that's been unfortunate for them because who knows what could have happened with them in the standings if it weren't for all of their injuries. We have Cleveland right there. They're vulnerable as well. Charlotte and Atlanta fit into the same category for me, where their offense, both of their offenses are fairly potent, especially Atlanta with Trae Young, Bogdanovich down there, Clint Capella, Danilo Gallinari. But both his defense, they're just horrendous. Both teams' defense, they're both horrendous. Atlanta, Charlotte a little bit more than Atlanta, but Atlanta, they've played the same throughout the entire season. So if you're just looking at the standings, Chicago, Cleveland, Atlanta, Charlotte. Those should be the teams the Celtics want. The Nets really don't impress me at all outside of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. But you have to admit, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, if they're going to go in and lock themselves into playoff series or lock themselves in a game, that can become a bloodbath over a span of 6 or 7 games, and you never want to deal with that. And then the Raptors, we all know what's the deal with the Raptors in Toronto in general. The Celtics, is everyone vaccinated? There's reports that 2 players aren't vaccinated. The speculation, I would say, is 1 player is not vaccinated. But according to just the tea leaves and what the players are saying, all the players are vaccinated. So who knows what's actually going to happen with that situation. But as for the breakdown, like I said, Charlotte, Cleveland, and Chicago, those are the teams the Celtics should want to face. They should want to avoid Brooklyn and Toronto if they're given the choice, of course.
I don't want to find out. Like Ian said, it's funny because I don't want to find out Atlanta. Look, the Nets. Imagine the Nets were, if they had, like, I was talking to Rob this morning, and we were talking about the Nets, and I think they'd be scary good if Joe Harris was healthy. Like, you have Joe Harris, you have Seth Curry on top of KD and Kyrie. I mean, scoring-wise, that is probably the best in the league outside of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, a healthy Klay Thompson. But the Eastern Conference standings, they stay tight. We do gain a half game above Milwaukee, above Philly. I think that 4-5 matchup, that Philly, I'm looking at it right now, a Philly-Toronto matchup, that'd be a pretty cool matchup. And a potential Heat-Nets matchup would look pretty cool as well. If Cavaliers stay 7, Ian, I don't care if they don't have LeBron James. They ousted us in 2 Eastern Conference Finals as of late. I want them gone.
Revenge.
I want a revenge. Dude, I don't care if they don't have LeBron. I don't care if it's not like the same Cleveland. I just want to get them out of the playoffs. And the same thing. Hey, if we have to face the Heat in the conference finals or the second round, whenever it may be, same thing. I'm all about revenge. Let's take a look at tonight's final box score. The Boston Celtics do defeat, and I mean brutally defeat, the Chicago Bulls, 117-94, 23-point road victory for the Celtics. That is their 50th victory of the season. Jaylen Brown led the way with a game-high 28 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. Horford, the double-double. He's tonight's player spotlight, 17 and 10. Tatum, triple-double watch, 16, 10, and 8. Tice, 15 and 6. Derek White, 10. Marcus Smart gave his all. 9.6 assists, a steal, and a block. That is Boston's third straight win. Well, it's quite the opposite for the Chicago Bulls. This is their third straight loss. DeMar DeRozan led the way for them, 16, 2, and 5. Vucevic, 13, 7, and 1. And you see Zach LaVine struggle tonight, 2 of 9 from the floor with 7 points. Ian, any final closing thoughts as we bring back in Seamus for our final closing thoughts? We'll start with you, Ian.
I will say it was kind of funny in this game. The Chicago Bulls bench played better than their starters did. Yeah. Like the Bulls bench, like they played pretty solid, not gonna lie. But I mean, what else do we say? I honestly think we rest our players tomorrow.
Just lose.
I would never say that, but at the same time, if we happen to not play Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Al Horford tomorrow, I would not be against that. I wouldn't be against it. I would not be against it. But yeah, 50 wins for the Celtics team that, they were dead in the water. That what it looked like in December. In January, we were already talking about potentially trading and breaking up the core. Now we're 50. We have 50 wins We've lost 9 games since January 14th. We've lost 9. That's absolutely insane.
Seamus, how about yourself? Any final thoughts?
Have to wait
20 games over 500. It's insane. 20 games over 500. And right now, the Celtics, this might have been their last game of the season in terms of their actual, their guy, right? Because in Chicago, you saw the Celtics dominated with all their guys. No one report outside of Rob and, of course, Nick Staus from Oregon. But tomorrow, I think you're going to see Al Horford, no Tatum, down, and then moving forward into that Memphis game, the last game of the season, I don't think you're going to see anybody there either. Maybe somebody called it a cameo earlier from some of the top guys, maybe Tatum and Brown and Horford. They get a couple of minutes out there, smart as well. But then after that, I believe guys are going to inevitably rest that game. So, just looking at the overall situation of the Celtics right now, Tatum was in a way the last 2 games, really, their last games of the season where they dominate to close out at home. They dominate, close out against the Chicago Bulls tonight with their normal lineup. In these next 2 games, I expect them to rest. And then after that, game 1 of the first round is upon us.
Right.
And we'll be at home it's going to be a ride. It's going to be a crazy ride this year because this team is legitimately built to go out there in the postseason. This has been now Celtics history. A couple of years in the making. We took a stack in 2019 from the championship. 2020, they exceeded expectations. And then last year, injuries, different circumstances such as COVID completely plagued the team, and a lot of people had questions on is this the team to go out and win banner number 18? Is this going to be the core group of players? Now all of a sudden, for 2022, this team had a chance not only to compete here, but moving into the future. They have more years in front of them. All these guys are under contract. Derek White, Daniel, Jason Tatum, Jalen, Robert Williams, even Grant Williams, and Al Horford as well under contracts. Guys, they're all going to make a difference moving forward. And the Celtics, they have a tremendous opportunity right now, and we're all here for the ride because it's going to be great.
Well, the Boston Celtics, like we mentioned, 50 bomb season. Ime Udoka just said in his press conference, when I signed up for here, this was expected 50 wins. I'll tell you right now, if you were asking me 2 months ago, you told me the Boston Celtics are going to finish in the second seed 50 wins. I tell you, you were delusional. You didn't know anything about basketball. Unbelievable turnaround for the Celtics. This season isn't over yet. Look, I'm expecting my final thoughts. Say Tatum and Brown and Horford and Smart and, Rob, obviously, are out these next 2 games. What you did in that Toronto game, maybe minus the turnovers, I want to see the exact same. I think this would be a huge little 2-game stretch for guys like Pritchard and Smith, even as Sam Hauser, to get minutes and produce really well and help the Celtics finish out the season strong. Even if it is losses, I want to go out there, play hard, and stay healthy. That's all I'm asking for. And make open shots. Healthy.
Stay healthy, please. Please. We cannot afford another major injury. Please.
We can't. But we will have you covered right back here tomorrow night for Celtics Postgame Live. Celtics and Bucks, one of the biggest games of the season. But it would be totally distraught if Tatum, Brown, and Horford rested. But anyway, we'll be covered nonetheless tomorrow night. I'm Justin. That's Ian. That's Seamus. We'll see you 24 hours.